Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. The Grade 3 Salvator Mile is the final race on a 14-race extravaganza at Monmouth on Saturday. It's a Grade 3. We're going a mile, 2 turns at Monmouth. $150,000 is the purse. And as we take a look at the field, you see a very familiar face. Hot Rod Charlie back to the scene of last year's Haskell. He finished first in that race. He was disqualified. Hot Rod Charlie is a horse with obviously a lot of ability. He's banked $5 million, and it looks like Doug O'Neill's found a great spot for him returning from Dubai.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. I mean, maybe a little bit of out of sight, out of mind for this horse since he's, been in Dubai for his last couple of starts. We haven't seen him in this country since the end of last year, but he's still one of the best handicap horses that we have over here, Dan. He's a really good horse. This is a great spot.
Top 5, maybe top 3 handicap horse in the country, Hot Rod Charlie. And with his speed, he always has a bit of an advantage. We throw up the Timeform US Pace Projector. Hot Rod Charlie, Mike Smith, expected to get to the front in a blue bar scenario, favoring horses on or near the early lead. And when the best horse gets the best trip, usually they're tough to beat.
Yeah, those things are all true. I mean, he's going to be really, really hard for this field to run down, especially if he gets this trip.
Now, Mind Control is a bum. He's earned almost $1.5 million in his career. He was a Grade 1 stakes winner at 2. He won the Alan Jerkins as a 3-year-old. And amazingly enough, Todd has only run this horse once around 2 turns since the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in 2018. And that was in the Park's Dirt Mile, and he earned a 104 Beyer speed figure, and he won that race, although he probably shouldn't have.
Right. Yeah, that was, we'll call it a fortuitous win there with Silver State, running right by this horse in the stretch, and then for some reason, just not finishing at all in there and allowing Mind Control to come back. I would also, I'm not going to knock Mind Control. He's a really nice horse. I would take that 104 Beyer with a grain of salt. He's run twice since then. I didn't think he ran particularly well in either of them. And so Todd's going to try to stretch him back out.
But he did catch 2 freaks that day. Speaker's Corner and a hole in the wind in the Carter, and he wasn't beating Jackie's Warrior at Churchill Downs last time out. But you're right, he didn't run especially well in either one of those races. Maybe getting back with Lasix will help this horse. He was on Lasix at Parks, and he does have a little bit of tactical speed. Mo Hafith is the number 2. I'm familiar with Mo Hafith from the Mid-Atlantic region, and I've always thought he's a nice little second-level, third-level allowance horse. They ran really well in the Frank Whiteley when they cut him back to 7 furlongs. The issue with this horse, and he really wasn't bad in the Pimlico Special last time out, is that he just acts up a lot in the preliminaries.
Okay, yeah, that's something that you want to keep an eye on then. It's just a really hard race for this horse, especially if that pace projector is how the race plays out, because he doesn't really have that much speed, Dan, and if the pace isn't there to set him up, I just don't see how he's going to get past a lot of these horses.
Number 3 is Hot Rod Charlie. Certainly the horse to beat. He might be the horse to catch. He's been so good since his 2-year-old campaign where he was second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I was curious to watch the Dubai World Cup again because I remember watching it and saying, this horse is going nowhere on the backstretch. If you recall that race, the big favorite was Life is Good, and he was able to control the pace up front. And Hot Rod Charlie's being scrubbed on, and it didn't look good for him. And now as we turn to the stretch, he still has a lot of work to do, and it looks like is this going to be a bad day for Hot Rod Charlie? Now, I'm not sure whether this is a case where the horse on the lead just starts getting really, really tired and Hot Rod Charlie benefits to get up for second, or Hot Rod Charlie just started running, or a combination of both. I don't know what to think of the Dubai World Cup.
I don't either, but certainly the pace came back for him, Dan, because certainly Life is Good did not see out the distance. He's going to get really tired here. Boy, it looked like Hot Rod Charlie had all the momentum there through the stretch down on the rail, but he just wasn't good enough to take advantage of these horses stopping in front of him. He ran fine, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. I don't know, Dan. This is just a great spot for him, so I'm not, going to sit here and try to beat him in this race. But I will say, going back to the end of last year, I didn't love his Breeders' Cup. I didn't love his San Antonio, even though he got beat a nose. I didn't love his Dubai World Cup either. This is a great spot for him, but I can't say that I've, been thrilled with this horse's form lately.
Roger Atfield's one of the great trainers that I've seen in a long, long time, and he's been around for a long, long time. And what's up with him running this horse on dirt, Cheryl Spite?
I don't know. It's so strange that this is the spot that he shows up in, especially considering the race 2 starts back when he won the Grade 1 by a nose. You feel like that, this weekend they could run him in the poker over at Belmont, and they're not going to do that. I don't know. They ran this horse on dirt once. He was terrible.
You would think they would run him either in the Poker or in the Monmouth. At Monmouth on Saturday, going a mile and an eighth. If they think that's too far, of course, there's the Poker. He ran okay last time out, not great in that Churchill Downs race. That turf course might have been a bit of a mess going a mile and eighth. He was 3-1 in that race, but listen, I like him a lot on turf. I'm just not sure I like him on dirt, especially at 6-1 on the morning line. Helium might be a little bit of a different story. Mark Cassie's run this horse on synthetic in his last two races. We're going to watch his last start, his second race off of a lengthy layoff. This is going a mile and a 16th over the Tapeta at Woodbine. He was put on a chase in this race, and there just wasn't a lot of speed. He had to use, I think, a lot of energy just to get up to the leader, and then he's outfinished in a good second place effort. A lot of folks forget this horse was pretty good on dirt when he first came to the States.
Yeah, he was. And that, to me, that makes him interested in this race. You know, he didn't really have any excuse in either of his two starts since they've brought him back on synthetic. But he was pretty good on dirt when they first switched him over. And then, you know, saved the Kentucky Derby, Dan, where, you know, just a race that he's not good enough to win. Even his, you know, a couple of dirt starts after that weren't terrible. This horse is a little interesting coming back to the main track.
No, his Matt Wynn was just fine. And then you look at that race at Charlestown. That was one of those days at Charlestown, nights at Charlestown, where he had a ridiculously inside speed favoring track, and Helium's trying to rally from way out of it. He had no chance that day. And Exculpatory, who went gate to wire with a 100 buyer. He's somewhat interesting in here. He probably has to run a lifetime best, as does the number 10 Confessor, who's coming off of a win. He's a really hearty horse. He's won 11 times in his career. Let's watch his second level allowance at Monmouth at this distance on May the 28th. And he's just better than these horses. And he pops an 86 buyer speed figure, a number that Hot Rod Charlie, you know, his fans would say could walk backwards.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this horse, he does have pretty good speed, so maybe he'll just go forward in this race and outrun his odds. It's hard to see him, you know, really sticking around at the end of this race, though, just based on his overall form and then who he's in against.
Fat Man has run well at Monmouth in the past, 2 for 4. He's a hard-hitting veteran. Last time out, looks like a prep race. He was disappointing, however, as the favorite at Delaware and an allowance. And you have to wonder, at the ripe old age of 8, is Fat Man slowly getting a little bit long in the tooth? His very best races would put him in the mix.
They certainly would. And it's a valid question, you know, about, you know, what he has left in the tank now as an 8-year-old. He has bounced back from poor performances before. He's shown up on occasion and run some really fast races, and he's run very well over this track as well. There are ways to make a case for him, Dan. I don't know that 5-1 is the right price to take, though.
That's right. Beaten favorite in his last 3 on dirt. 5-1 seems a little bit light against the likes of Hot Rod Charlie, but I think Hot Rod Charlie's going to really be pounded at the window. Everybody else might drift up a little bit. Before we get to our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for all the latest DRFTV video offerings. I'm going to try to get a little bit brave in here, Mike, as we take a look at our picks for the reasons that you mentioned discussing Hot Rod Charlie. Well, Hot Rod Charlie's found a great spot. He's obviously the horse to beat. I wasn't in love with some of his latter races in 2021, and I didn't really love the Dubai World Cup that much. Mind Control, probably a mile's even pushing it for him, but he's a solid horse, and I guess he's the alternative.
Yeah, he's got a lot of class, that horse. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to argue too hard with anybody who wants to try to beat Hot Rod Charlie. I'm hoping that, you know, he's had a little time now since the Dubai World Cup, and I feel like that's probably something he needed. I'm glad they gave him a little bit of time off. If he comes back and he runs anything close to his A race, he's just going to win.
And as a racing fan, you want to see a horse like Hot Rod Charlie run well and then all of a sudden show up in some of the bigger handicap races later this year. 3571 for Mike, 1327 for me. It's a really nice card at Monmouth on Saturday, anchored by the Salvator Mile, the final race of the day. Best of luck.